Hello, this is Joe, and today we're going to continue our series of lessons on wisdom. Uh, Today's lesson, the title from Proverbs is Wisdom's Feast. The last several lessons have been from Proverbs. Today's lesson will be the last of that series, and then we'll move into the New Testament to talk about wisdom in the New Testament. So today, as we finish the book of Proverbs, uh, I want to spend just a minute to sort of tie it all up and to see how these have been uh, uh, telling a story as we go along. And as we know, Solomon, most of folks would consider Solomon to be one of the wisest men that we've ever been aware of. Uh, the Proverbs that he wrote and what we're going to study today were things that he thought were important enough that he wrote them down to maintain from a historical perspective. He was trying to share his wisdom for those of us that would come along after him. And I think today's lesson is particularly relevant to the things that are going on today. So I'm going to read from Proverbs, the ninth chapter, beginning at the first verse. And we'll talk about this in three different sections. Uh, Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her animals. She has mixed her wine. And she also set her table. She has sent out her servant girls. She calls from the highest places in the town. You that are simple, turn in here. To those without sense, she says, come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. A scoffer who is rebuked will only hate you. The wise, when rebuked, will love you. Give instruction to the wise, and they will become wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will gain in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. The foolish woman is loud. She is ignorant and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, on a seat at the high places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their ways. You who are simple, turn in here. And to those without sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But they do not know that the dead are there and that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. So if I can paraphrase a little bit of what we just read, and as I said, I want to look at it in three different parts, and I'm going to start with the first 6 verses and also then the last 6 verses. Um, and the beginning verses was wisdom, and that is the wise woman has prepared a place for those of us traveling through to stop and rest and eat. And then the last 6 verses talks about the foolish woman, and she has prepared a place for us to stop and eat and rest. Uh, Now, think just a little bit about when this was written. Solomon is trying to tell us a story through the proverb uh, that will have meaning for us today in 2020. And the description of the wise woman's place and the foolish woman's place is identical. And what Solomon is telling us is that it's real easy for us to see evil and think it's good. Again, if you think of wisdom, and we hear again in these scriptures that true wisdom comes from God. If wisdom is God and man is over here, and as we start this journey towards wisdom, there's many steps to it. And I do not want to imply, as a matter of fact, I want to say just the opposite. Our pursuit of wisdom is not a way to enter heaven. We can only enter heaven as a gift of God. Jesus' death on the cross is the ticket that gets us into heaven. Luther was right. It's by the grace of God that we're saved. But if we are saved and if we are in this family, then we want to contribute in the family. And our instructions today from this proverb is that we are to pursue knowledge, pursue wisdom as we move along the path. Now, the interesting thing, again, is as Solomon portrays wisdom and foolishness, they look the same. And that shouldn't be a surprise to us. Part of the allure of evil is that it can look like anything that it wants to. It is the goal of evil to attract those of us that it can to the evil. So of course it can make itself look like something that's wholesome and good. Free will that God gave us has some pretty expensive charges that go with it. And this is one of those. We have to be able to discern the difference between good and evil. And how do we do that? Well, let's read the middle 6 chapters of our reading, starting at the 8th verse. A scoffer who is rebuked will only hate you. The wise, when rebuked, will love you. Give instruction to the wise, and they will become wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will gain in learning. Again, let me paraphrase. If you correct a wise person, they will thank you for that. If you correct a foolish person, then they will argue. So what does that mean to us today? What it means is that all of us need to be aware that we are not wise. We're in this progression somewhere along the way. We need the influence of others to gain additional wisdom. Stephen Covey, who wrote a number of books, and one of those would be 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he worded it this way. He said that, I think it's his 3rd principle, seek first to understand and then be understood. So if you think about discourse between people, if folks are disagreeing, what they do is they talk over each other. Sometimes they shout, but they don't listen to what else was said. And Mr. Covey said that if you want to communicate with someone, the first thing you need to do is listen to what the other person said. And once you listen to it, then get them to understand what you were saying. And that's a very unnatural practice to have. I've been aware of that philosophy for a number of years, and I've observed people, when 2 folks disagree, nobody wants to listen. They want to spend all of their time teaching the other person what they know. And come to find out, Solomon said the same thing. It appears to me Stephen Covey read this proverb, and that's where he got his principle, because a wise person will learn from the folks that are around them. A scoffer A foolish person will not learn from the folks that he interacts with. He will argue with them. Think about where we are today. Think about our interactions with people. Think about our interactions on a political level, on a business level. It's like there's no middle ground. It's either this or it's this. And if I believe A, then anybody that says B is wrong, and I don't need to listen to them. But if you think of what wisdom is the opposite of that. Wisdom says that truly wise people listen and learn from other people. I think about our political landscape today, and it concerns me that no one's listening. Everyone is telling other people what they need to think. And I am not saying there's people that wear white hats and people that wear black hats. It's just the opposite. It is our normal political discourse now to belittle and disregard opinions that are not your opinions. And if we think about wisdom and we think about Solomon and we think about Proverbs and what those first 9 chapters have taught us, and I think this one is the one that ties it all together, what Solomon is telling us is that none of us know enough now. And we are to teach each other. We are to listen to each other. We are to hear other people and understand why they see the things that they understand, and then tell them what we think. And if we can do that, then we can increase our wisdom and move from the foolish area to the more godlike area. I don't think Solomon could have spoken words that ring any more true than those words do for us today. So I would challenge us all, and I am the one that needs to hear this the most. I know that. Robin knows that. Everybody that knows me knows that I need to listen more. I get that. I'm going to try to do it. But this is what I want to challenge us all to do. And that is, when we hear something that we disagree with, instead of immediately thinking about what we're going to say to prove that's wrong, let's listen. Let's try to understand why that person is saying what they are, understand what their perspective is, understand the experiences that they've had that cause them to believe that. And Solomon thinks that will help us to be a wiser individual. And again, our goal is not to be wise like God, but our goal is to move along that process. And if we are going to be Christians, then that is one of the tasks that we need to accomplish. Let us pray. Holy One, you alone are perfectly wise. When we foolishly turn toward deceptive voices, bring us back. Draw us to your gracious feast of life and teach us how to wisely call others there. Through Jesus Christ, your own wisdom and our true home. Amen.